First part of Chapter 2 of Mutual Aid, a Factor of Evolution. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Enko. Mutual Aid, a Factor of Evolution by Peter Kropotkin. First part of Chapter 2, Mutual Aid Among Animals, open bracket, continued, close bracket. As soon as spring comes back to the temperate zone, myriads and myriads of birds which are scattered over the warmer regions of the south come together in numberless bands, and full of vigour and joy hasten northwards to rear their offspring. Each of our hedges, each grove, each ocean cliff, and each of the lakes and ponds with which Northern America, Northern Europe, and Northern Asia are dotted, tell us at that time of the year the tale of what mutual aid means for the birds, what force, energy, and protection it confers to every living being, however feeble and defenseless it otherwise might be. Take, for instance, one of the numberless lakes of the Russian and Siberian steppes. Its shores are peopled with myriads of aquatic birds belonging to at least a score of different species, all living in perfect peace, all protecting one another. For several hundred yards from the shore the air is filled with gulls and terns as with snowflakes on a winter day. Thousands of plovers and sandcoursers run over the beach, searching their food, whistling, and simply enjoying life. Further on almost each wave, a duck is rocking, while higher up you notice the flocks of the Kazaki ducks. Exuberant life swarms everywhere. Open footnote. See Vetsov's Periodical Phenomena, page 251. Close footnote. And here are the robbers, the strongest, the most cunning ones, those ideally organized for robbery, and you hear their hungry, angry, dismal cries as for hours in succession they watch the opportunity of snatching from this mass of living beings one single unprotected individual. But as soon as they approach, their presence is signaled by dozens of voluntary sentries and hundreds of girls and terns set to chase the robber. Maddened by hunger, the robber soon abandons his usual precautions. He suddenly dashes into the living mass, but attacked from all sides, he again is compelled to retreat. From sheer despair he falls upon the wild ducks, but the intelligent social birds rapidly gather in a flock and fly away. If the robber is an ern, they plunge into the lake; if it is a falcon, or they raise a cloud of water dust and bewilder the assailant if it is a kite. Open footnote. Seferlitz, quoted by Brehm, 4th, 760. Close footnote. And while life continues to swarm on the lake, the robber flies away with cries of anger, and looks out for carrion, or for a young bird or a field mouse, not yet used to obey in time the warnings of its comrades. In the face of an exuberant life, the ideally armed robber must be satisfied with the off-fall of that life. Further north in the Arctic archipelagos, you may sail along the coast for many miles and see all the ledges, all the cliffs and corners of the mountain sides, up to a height of from 200 to 500 feet, literally covered with seabirds, whose white breasts show against the dark rocks as if the rocks were closely sprinkled with chalk specks. The air near Ainfor is, so to say, full with fowls. Open footnote. The Arctic Voyages of A. E. Nordensjork, London, 1879. Page 135. See also the powerful description of the St. Kilda Islands by Mr. Dixon, open bracket, quoted by Seaborn, close bracket, and nearly all books of Arctic travel. Close footnote. Each of such bird mountains is a living illustration of mutual aid, as well as of the infinite variety of characters, individual and specific, resulting from social life. The oyster catcher is renowned for its readiness to attack the birds of prey. The barge is known for its watchfulness, and it easily becomes the leader of more placid birds. The turnstone, when surrounded by comrades belonging to more energetic species, is a rather timorous bird, but it undertakes to keep watch for the security of the commonwealth when surrounded by smaller birds. Here you have the dominative swans, there the extremely sociable kittiwake gulls, among whom carols are rare and short, the prepossessing polar guillemots, which continually caress each other, the egoist she-goose, who has repudiated the orphans of a killed comrade, and by her side another female who adopts anyone's orphans, and now paddles surrounded by 50 or 60 youngsters, whom she conducts and cares for as if they all were her own breed. Side by side with the penguins, which steal one another's eggs, you have the dotterels, whose family relations are so charming and touching that even passionate hunters hunters recalled from shooting a female surrounded by her young ones, or the eider ducks, among which (like the velvet ducks or the corollas of the savannas) several females hatch together in the same nest, or the lumps which sit in turn upon a common covey. Nature is variety itself, offering all possible varieties of characters from the basest to the highest, and that is why she cannot be depicted by any sweeping assertion. Still less can she be judged from the moralist's point of view, because the views of the moralists are themselves a result, mostly unconscious, of the observation of nature. Coming together at nesting time is so common with most birds that more examples are scarcely needed. Our trees are crowned with groups of crows' nests, our hedges are full of nests of smaller birds, our farmhouses give shelter to colonies of swallows, our old towers are the refuge of hundreds of nocturnal birds, and pages might be filled with the most charming descriptions of the peace and harmony which prevail in almost all these nesting associations. As to the protection derived by the weakest birds from their unions, it is evident. That excellent observer, Dr. Quest, saw, for instance, the little cliff swallows nesting in the immediate neighbourhood of the prairie falcon (Falco polyargus). The falcon had its nest on the top of one of the minarets of clay which are so common in the canyons of Colorado, while a colony of swallows nested just beneath. The little peaceful birds had no fear of a rapacious neighbour. They never let it approach to the colony. They immediately surrounded it and chased it so that it had to make off at once. Elliot Quest in Built-in U.S. Geological Survey of Territories, 4th, No. 7, page 556, 579, etc. Among the gulls (Larus argentatus), Polyakov saw on a march in northern Russia that the nesting grounds of a very great number of these birds were always patrolled by one male, which warned the colony of the approach of danger. All birds rose in such case and attacked the enemy with great vigour. The females, which had 5 or 6 nests together on each knoll of the march, kept a certain order in leaving their nests in search of food. The fledglings, which otherwise are extremely unprotected and easily become the prey of the rapacious birds, were never left alone (Family Habits among the Aquatic Birds, in Proceedings of the Zoological Section of St. Petersburg Society of Nature, December 17, 1874). Life in societies does not cease when the nesting period is over. It begins then in a new form. The young broods gather in societies of youngsters, generally including several species. Social life is practiced at that time chiefly for its own sake, partly for security, but chiefly for the pleasures derived from it. So we see in our forests the societies formed by the young nuthatches (Psittaceae), together with titmouses, chaffinches, wrens, tree creepers, or some woodpeckers. Bremfather, quoted by Abram, 4th, 34 sequence. See also White's Natural History of Selborne, letter 11th. In Spain, the swallow is met with in company with kestrels, flycatchers, and even pigeons. In the far west of America, the young horned larks live in large societies, together with another lark (sprags), the skylark, the savanna sparrow, and several species of buntings and longspurs. Dr. Quest, Birds of Dakota and Montana, in Built-in U.S. Survey of Territories, 4th, No. 7. In fact, it would be much easier to describe the species which live isolated than to simply name those species which join the autumnal societies of young birds, not for hunting or nesting purposes, but simply to enjoy life in society and to spend their time in pleasant sports after having given a few hours every day to find their daily food. And finally, we have that immense display of mutual aid among birds, their migrations, which I dare not even enter upon in this place. Sufficient to say that birds which have lived for months in small bands scattered over a wide territory gather in thousands. They come together at a given place for several days in succession before they start, and they evidently discuss the particulars of the journey. Some species will indulge every afternoon in flights preparatory to the long passage. All wait for their tardy congeners, and finally they start in a certain well-chosen direction, a fruit of accumulated collective experience, the strongest flying at the head of the band and relieving one another in that difficult task. They cross the seas in large bands consisting of both big and small birds, and when they return next spring they repair to the same spot, and in most cases each of them takes possession of the very same nest which it had built or repaired the previous year. It has often been intimated that larger birds may occasionally transport some of the smaller birds when they cross together the Mediterranean, but the fact still remains doubtful. On the other side, it is certain that some smaller birds